Really delighted to have everyone here, and particularly welcome Felicity onto the call, who's going to be leading our conversation today. So welcome from EEA and from King's to join us, and we look forward to talking with you today. Very brief introductions. I'm delighted as a representative of King's just to welcome everyone, but what I'll do is actually pass over quite quickly to Felicity, Ophie and Marc, who are our panel today, and Felicity's going to be leading the conversation. So perhaps should we go in that order, Felicity, Ophie and Marc, to do introductions, and then Felicity, I'll pass over to you to continue us on, if that's okay. Shout if you need us.
Thanks, Kate. That's great. My name is Felicity Cousins. I'm the editor of Sustainable Hotel News. We write about all things to do with sustainability and hotels across the globe, which includes reporting, accreditation, the social side of it as well, so all the ESG. So this is perfect, a perfect forum to talk about the course that you're putting on and let our readers understand.
Hello everybody, I'm Ibrahim. I'm the Chief Executive of the Energy and Environment Alliance. We're a coalition of hotel asset owners, managers, investors and operators. And we're working, delighted to be partnered with King's to deliver an ESG executive education program specifically for the hospitality sector leaders, because it's so critical, as I'm sure we'll discuss later, to equip and inform our leaders to be able to make the right decisions going forward at this, what in my view is a transformational time.
And I'm Dr. Marc Lepere. I'm in King's Business School in the Department of Banking and Finance. I also lead ESG and sustainability for the business school, and I'm delighted to be working with the EEA, and I am the program director. I actually designed this program, we'll probably touch on that, but after a series of workshops to really understand both the industry, but also what you particularly wanted out of a program like this. And I'll be joined, obviously, teaching it by several eminent colleagues from across the university: law, banking, marketing, etc.
Great. Thank you for your introductions. I guess we'll push on. I'm really interested to hear about the course as a whole, but let's start first with obviously CSRD and the ESG reporting coming in. It's been a long time coming in some ways, but some people might find it a little bit upon themselves. Will everyone be at different stages? Does it matter? Will the course be able to help hotel leaders who are at all different stages of the reporting process?
Ophie, do you want to go? Or?
Marc, I think you should start off on that one.
Okay, absolutely. I mean, I've been studying crisis, amongst other things, for a couple of years now, and it's a funny thing. They're almost always surprising, but rarely unexpected. And the climate crisis is probably the most expected crisis in history. So whatever about the regulation, a lot of businesses have turned their mind to this, as you say, Felicity, and certainly the more progressive ones have. And the course will cover that end of the spectrum right through to people who are just waking up to the fact that they are affected by this, perhaps not even directly, but because they're on somebody else's value chain. So maybe they've got an investor in the business, or they've got a bank loan, or they're just part of a bigger group. So a lot of people are affected, and everybody will be covered, yes.
Okay, and so it will kind of be like almost individualized to each course member in some ways.
No, it can't be that. But it's being very carefully designed following workshops I mentioned. We did a big, Ophie had a big global summit, the EEA last year. Perhaps you were there, I can't remember. And we turned that into really a global workshop. There was about 200 people there. We then followed it up with workshops two in Europe, one in North Africa, in Middle East, North Africa, one in North America, one in APAC. So we really covered opinion from around the world, and I think, and obviously within that, we've understood the different places that people are on this spectrum. So sure. I mean, it's very much fit for purpose, I think.
Yeah, sure. And who is it actually aimed at? You mean it's aimed at hotel leaders and executives, and what kind of level are you talking at, and how far would that go down within a hotel kind of model?
I think it's really interesting. One of the characteristic or roles of leadership is to recognize things perhaps before most people in the organization, to frame what that thing means, and then to organize the organization's resources and the environment within which people will be responding to whatever the issue is. And that's leadership ultimately. And anyone who's involved in making those decisions in a hospitality company, so that could be the CEO, it could be the chairman, it will be board directors, it may be the level down. It obviously depends on the organization itself. But I would say anybody who's involved in recognizing that, forget the regulation, sustainable business is now an issue. It's the front and center issue. Anyone who's involved in that, anyone who's involved in allocating resource, managing teams, helping the organization respond, should come on this course.
So there's a broad spectrum, and it could be more than one person from that, you know. But
very good point, Felicity. In fact, arguably it really should be, because this is a multidisciplinary issue. It probably, because we're dealing ultimately with, you know, with data here, it probably will somehow rest under the financial department, if you like, but the data comes from across the business. It'll involve the kitchen, it'll involve the landscaping people, it'll involve the, you know, the hospitality people, it'll involve the people cleaning the rooms, it'll involve everybody in the hotel, turning the lights off, it'll involve the plumbing staff, the maintenance, everything. So it really is a multifunctional issue. And I think to think of it as anything else is a mistake. I think some people would like to think, I'll make it Felicity's job, you know, give her an office in the back and she can sort it out for us. It really isn't going to be like that. It's going to be throughout and across the entire business. It's going to be rather like a lens. It's a bit like wearing spectacles. We're all going to put on a new pair of sustainable business spectacles, and we're going to have to see everything right through the organization through those specs.
It sounds quite overwhelming for anyone who hasn't kind of got their foot on that, the bottom rung of that ladder. Can the course kind of dissolve those concerns? Because I can imagine some people might be scared to even begin.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think there was an article out, in fact, Kate sent it to me recently. Some people are, particularly the next generation, are suffering from kind of eco-neurosis. They're kind of worried about, as you say, this is just a vast thing and I really can't get my head around it. Actually, it's like any big problem, and you guys are business leaders, you know this. It's about breaking it down into its bite-sized chunks. And the course very much is designed around understanding enough of the science to accept that it's happening and it's real, but more importantly, to convince other people of that, because that's crucial. And then we go straight into the regulation, what's coming down the pipe, so that there are no more surprises for anybody, to your point at the beginning. What does it mean? How do the regulations all tie together and tie in with new accounting standards, for instance? We then move on to the finance issue, which is a big part of the course. There's actually 2 modules on that. And then we move into marketing, which is really switching now from compliance, if you like, into the value creation side of this. And that's really, really important, because this is not just all about ticking boxes and filling the forms in like you've been asked to do by the regulator. It is absolutely good business. It is about creating value. So that's really the marketing component. And then we have a leadership component at the end, and it all comes together in a personal assessment. So, you know, which is actually going to be a proposal to your own board, and the board will be asked to sit and respond to it. So it's a very application focused, trying to get real world impact course. And it's yeah, I mean, I think it'll be very, very actionable, which is really what we want it to be, as opposed to being overwhelming. It'll be very, you know, you can do this, you can do that. Here are some measures to think about. It's very identifying problems and trying to fix them.
And how much of the course will be
focused on? Just to add to that, because I think one of the things that I really like very much about the way that this particular course and program has been structured is that, you know, for our industry, we're already receiving, you know, questions around ESG in RFPs. We're already receiving questions, you know, when it comes to buying or selling hotels in terms of an ESG audit. I mean, these things are already coming through. It's not just a response to regulation. It's also transpiring through, be it through the consumer and demand side, or if it's coming up through the financial side, access to debt capital, access to equity. You know, we're beginning to see all of these questions creeping up. And that's what I really like about the way that this course has been structured, because it provides all of those key components, which, as Marc said earlier, covers a wide spectrum of senior executive roles within the company, to be able to have the information to make those informed decisions in their various areas, be it marketing in terms of dealing with what's really a changing corporate travel environment and increasingly changing leisure demand, or be it through the CFO's requirements, or be it the risk and compliance officer, because insurance companies are starting to ask more questions about whether the asset is going to be insurable or not. So this is really about preparing businesses to be able to deal with the new rules of business. And these new rules of business are being defined around everything, all the decisions that we're making at the senior executive level on a daily basis. I mean, the change is very rapid and it's accelerating.
Sure. No, those are all really good points. And actually, I was about to ask about RFPs. Will the RFP become redundant? I mean, will people be saying, just send me your reporting? That's what I need to know first and foremost, before I do any business with you.
I think that's a really interesting point. So, sorry, Ufi, you go ahead, and then I'll...
I was going to say, before becoming redundant, even if they ever do become redundant, I think one of the things that RFPs at the moment cannot do and may aspire to do in the future is to actually compare and benchmark performance across companies. So, at the moment, it's very much a checkbox exercise. Do you have a modern slavery policy in place? Yes, check. Okay, great. Well done. But in the future, perhaps, or do you have diversity and inclusion policy in place? Yes, I do. But going forward, I think what may happen, and probably will start to happen very soon, is that the question's going to be, okay, but tell us about that, because actually we want to go to the best in class. We don't want to simply go to an organization who's checked the box. We want to move to an organization who's doing that added extra in terms of working with the local community or having a really positive impact on the biodiversity and the natural environment around the asset. So I think that's what will happen. Rather than anything becoming redundant, I think we're going to see a step change and people saying it's not just enough anymore to check a box. We want to know exactly what you're doing, and we want to know how that compares to others in your competitive set, other luxury hotels, for example, in city centres, or other resorts, or other budget hotels in urban environments. So that's the direction I think we're going to see.
Sure.
The one thing I would add to that, Felicity, if I may, is that I don't think it'll be enough just to ask the questions either. I mean, arguably we have that already, and this greenwashing is rife everywhere. So what's required is some kind of understanding of quality of the answers. And there are some kite marks out there, like B Corp, like the Vera standard for the forestry offsetting, for instance. Vera, for instance, is now under investigation. A recent report says 93% of the trees don't exist, for instance. So these standards are very difficult. So what I personally think is most exciting about where we're going is that, and therefore anyone on the call must not be surprised when this happens, because it's going to happen. The whole argument here is that these ESG dimensions of a business are material to company value, either in the profit and loss account or in the equity side, right? The money side of the business is audited by independent certified professional accountants, right? There are new accounting standards which require them to do exactly the same on the non-financial side, which is all we're talking about, right? And if you think about it, why would you audit half the business and not the other half of the business if supposedly it all matters? So I think the RFPs will very fast get to the point of simply asking, has it been audited? Can you imagine doing business with a partner and saying, well, I have no idea whether your revenue are real, I don't know what the costs are, and I'm prepared to take it on face value, no problem. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think very quickly they will be audited.
And who's going to be doing the auditing, and who's going to be doing the policing if people don't provide this information?
Well, I think the auditing is very clear. There's two sides, actually, to the accounting story. There's the preparation of the accounts, just like on financial side, right? And then there's the auditing, which is different. So in this world, there will be accountants doing the preparation just the same. There will be some non-accountants doing it, like people calculating carbon emissions, for instance, at the moment. But the assurance side, which is what the accounting profession calls auditing for non-financial information, the assurance side, the auditing side, will absolutely only be done by professional accountants or bodies like the ISO, who are qualified to do this and recognized by regulators to do it. The whole idea of people basically marking their own homework is going to stop, and it's going to stop very fast.
And that's been kind of going on a lot with the sustainability and hotels with accreditations and all sorts. So
exactly,
it'll be interesting to see how the rest of that changes.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what I said about how's this going to be, not policed, that's the wrong word. How are people going to know who has completed all the information? And, you know, before you know it, time will have passed. So what's the grace period of being asked for your data and then providing it?
Well, the regulations for those companies affected at the moment are very, very clear. So big companies and financial institutions as of 24 have to report now, financial year 24, under the European Union taxonomy, the 21 metrics in there. They're called principal adverse indicators. They all have to report on the same thing, to Uffy's point of standardization. So that's like you have to put in your financial accounts, right? You have to do it. That's it, right? There will be fines. There are fines for not doing it. The fines will be up to the local countries, as always within the EU. The important thing about the EU regulation is that it applies to any firm doing business in the EEA, so in the European Economic Area. It doesn't matter if you're based in Singapore or Britain or America. If you do business in Europe, you have to complete this stuff. The second thing to say is that mainly at the moment, because of Scope 3 emissions, which is the carbon emissions for Scope 3 in the supply chains and the value chains, you have to ask your supply chain for this information. There is a grace period of a year for that, Felicity, as you say, but you know, it takes a long time to get this data. Data systems are hard to set up and create and to manage. And so again, if you need it for 25 reporting, you'd be best to start now because it's only 3 or 4 months away.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. So on the course, will you help people set up, you know, the process? If they're right at the beginning, they'll say this is, you'll say this is the benchmark you've got to do this year before you're going to be on the ladder. We
will be advising them as to what we regard as the best kind of core set of metrics to start with. They don't have to do them all, obviously, but we will be saying to people, here's what we think is the middle of the bullseye. Yes, absolutely.
And what do you think about, I mean, the hotel sector's had a bit of a rough ride, right? So, and I kind of feel sorry for them in terms of a lot of them joined in with offsetting and, you know, got on board with that and, you know, ticked all the boxes and really did well. That's been pushed back. That's been kind of pushed away, disregarded. Do you think there'll be pushback from the hotel sector on this, or can there simply not be any pushback on this?
Uffy, do you want, will I go first? You go first? I don't mind.
Well, you go first, Marc.
She always says that when she wants to think.
No. I already know what I want to say, but I think it will be time to think more diplomatically about how I want to put what I want to say. I'm happy to say it. I mean, you know, one of the things when you say we feel sorry for the sector, I think that's a really interesting thing. Our sector is really driven by people, serving people, and we're quite emotional about all of this stuff. And I think one of the things which is going to hopefully come out in the report that we're going to publish, hopefully this week, is that there are two aspects to this. And I'll let Marc talk more to that, the emotional, but also the rational approach to this. But the piece I wanted to say is when it comes to the hotel industry, and not just hotels, but the lodging industry, so that includes service departments and others as well, is, you know, we are actually responsible for the term greenwashing. So it was one of those little signs in a hotel bathroom, which Jay Westerveld saw in 1986, which asked guests to reuse their towels by means of saving water and therefore saving the planet, which actually led him to coin the term greenwashing. And today, the definition of greenwashing legally is the way that he framed it in that hotel bathroom, which is, well, can this establishment evidence and substantiate their environmental claims using robust data? And the answer was no. And we're still in this position today. So I think we're really going to start feeling sorry for ourselves if we are subject to reputational damage, which is going to hit us very quickly, if we're unable to substantiate what we're already doing, which is a lot of environmental claims. And when it comes to things like the S in ESG, you know, we already have fantastic stories and best practice examples, and there's so much already happening in the industry. What we don't do so well is actually frame it, measure it, disclose it in a way which is rational, not emotional. And that's why I think this course is absolutely critical. So that's what I wanted to say in response to your point about feeling sorry for. I think this is actually the opposite of that. This is a very exciting opportunity to substantiate, evidence what we're already doing, and be able to measure it, which all equals better business, streamlining costs, driving greater profitability, driving greater values of our assets. I mean, this is an opportunity. It's not about added burden. It's just about doing things differently. So I'll hand over to Marc now for his.
Yeah, I think only very quickly, just to add to that, I think it's worth asking yourselves, why do people greenwash? And the answer is because they know their customers like it. They want to hear it. It works, right? So why wouldn't you now just do it for real and produce the evidence? I mean, why not? Right? As Ufi said, it's going to be more effective, not less. You remove the reputational harm, or any possibility of reputational harm, and you run better businesses. So at a very simple level, I know I've touched quite a lot on the new accounting, because I actually believe, forget the regulation, I actually believe the new accounting standards are going to be the real engine of this, because that's how businesses run. They work on KPIs and targets and information and data that's decision useful. We can make CapEx decisions and OpEx decisions on that basis. And if you have financial data that's now comparable with non-financial data, then all of a sudden I can get them talking to each other. So at a very simple level, if I am trying to save carbon and I put in a big CapEx project and I'm measuring the carbon I'm saving, I can also measure how much money I'm saving. If I use less water, I will be saving money, right? There is a direct link. Okay, so I think purely from a rational basis, it makes sense.
But I think the social, how is the social side actually going to be measured?
Well, there are, so already in the EU taxonomy, what I mentioned earlier, a lot of people understandably are very focused on carbon. And it's fair, actually. The first accounting standards are carbon focused. Most of the early regulation is very carbon focused, but they're all on a journey, all these regulators and standard setters, and they're all adding bits all the time. So the IFRS, the accounting guys, have said the social side is their next year's offering, as well as nature, etc. So everybody's building on it. But even now, under the EU taxonomy, carbon isn't even the only environmental metric, let alone the only metric in those 21. So there's carbon, there's water, there's land, there's other things in there. And there are social metrics in there already, like ethnic and gender inclusivity, wage gaps, that kind of thing. So again, it's a misnomer to focus too much on only carbon or even only environment.
Yeah, sure. And that's what I was actually just going to conclude with. I know we've only got a couple of minutes left. Obviously, this is a huge shift in the landscape, as you said. How do you see ESG reporting demands changing to keep up with climate science and obviously the social side of it too? Or is this the big one?
The big what?
The big change for the sector.
Okay.
Because I think, will the demands continue and increase, and or is this what we've got to get our heads around, and then
right,
we'll be on
I can only tell you what I believe I know and what my colleagues and I believe we understand. One of the most exciting challenges, if you're of that persuasion, or one of the scariest if you're of the other persuasion, about this whole area, is that constant, incredibly rapid change is going to become the norm, right? And that's true in our business lives, in our personal lives, and naturally it'll be reflected in the regulation as well. I mean, so for instance, on the 27th of May, State Farm, the number 3 insurer in California, stopped selling real estate insurance to any new policies. They're now not even renewing policies. Allstate 5 days later did exactly the same. That's the 4th largest economy in the world. If you have real estate assets there, you've got a problem. That happened like that. Okay. Yeah. You're going to react. The regulators, of course, they're going to react. The science is going to change, Felicity. You're absolutely right. It will change. It needs to change. And I think this is going to continue evolving over time and at a faster and faster pace, actually.
And you'll presumably keep everyone on the course up to date with that in some sort of
We're planning to do, well, the great thing is when you've been on the course, you become a King's alumni. So there's a big network of us around the world. There will be refresher sessions where we'll have a kind of update, as it were, on an annual basis of what's gone on in the last year, what's to come next year. There'll be some of those sessions in the future. The main aim of the course is to really create a network of leaders in this industry who can help each other understand the problems, not bury their head in the sand, recognize that you've got a lot of buildings and a lot of people in your industry, and they are the core of all of this, and you need people to help each other. And I think that's very much the spirit here. So I'd be amazed if it did stop.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And just to finish, really, the course starts this week.
Yeah.
And you can still enroll, I imagine, up until, is there a cutoff point? I think it starts on Friday.
Kate?
Yes, close of play Wednesday, ideally, but yes, we do have some spaces left, and we'd really like that
Okay.
this first group to be the real pioneers and the leaders and the legacy leavers. So yes, starts Friday morning. And yes, speak to us before Wednesday. We've got some flexibility for people to join, but it's looking good. There's a really nice mix of people already. So
Great. Well, thanks very much for that discussion. I hope I've covered everything, and thanks very much for your time.
Thanks very much, Felicity.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Okay.
Thanks
you.
all. Yeah, definitely. Thanks for the time, and to the speakers as well. I always love hearing you all speak about this. It's very inspiring. So thank you. There's more information in the chat if anyone would like it. We've included the contact details. Don't hesitate to reach out. Any question, big or small. There's a human at the end of that email address, so we'll make sure we get back to you. And thank you, Felicity, and thanks everyone for your patience with a couple of the tech issues at the beginning. So we'll hopefully see some, if not all of you, on Friday at the beginning of the course.
Look forward to meeting you then. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.